Well, hello, and welcome. I'm excited to have you here. My name is Ryan Levesque, CEO of the Ask Method Company. I could be not be more excited for today's town hall event here today. Before we get started, I just want to kind of set the stage for what we're going to be covering here today. Today is all about making what we call the hybrid funnel transition, and we've got a good one here today. This is a no pitch event. Believe it or not, there's nothing for sale. There's nothing you can buy. So you can sit back, relax. You can really enjoy this time. I'm going to invite you along the way here today to engage. This is an interactive session. We're going to be doing some work together, some exercises together. I highly encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to take out a piece of paper and something to write with. If you like using colored pencils or colored markers, you might want to have that handy, or a tablet handy, because we're going to get our hands dirty and we're going to have a lot of fun. Before we go any further, I'm going to encourage you to do a couple things here today. First things first, I'm going to invite you to turn your camera on. I've got my camera on. I'd love to invite you to turn your camera on. And there's so many reasons for that. Number one, it's going to help you get the most out of this program here today. There'll be some live interaction that we'll be doing. It's helpful for me as one of your trainers, your presenters here today, to see you on camera. I can kind of read your facial expression. I can see, is this making sense? Like, do I need to pick up the pace? Are you getting bored here? Am I going too fast? Or your eyes pop out of your head saying, whoa, what are we doing here? So that's really helpful for me. And it's going to help you be really present. It's like if we were in the same room together and you were like on your phone, or you were distracted by social media, like you'd never do that in person with someone. And give yourself the gift of being present and focused by turning off all those distractions and being here for the next little while here today. This is a live only session. There is no recording. There is no replay. So I encourage you to be here the whole time, pay close attention, because we're going to cover a lot of ground in a relatively short amount of time. A few other things that I want to draw your attention to before we get started too, and that's this. I'm going to pull up my screen here in just a moment, and I'm going to invite you to engage inside the Q&A box here inside of Zoom. If you haven't done this before, there's a little box inside of Zoom. It says Q&A. And that is where you'll be able to answer questions, engage with myself and our team. And I'm going to invite you to take the first step right now. I would love to know where in the world you are participating from right now. Head on over to the Q&A box. I'd love to give you a little bit of a shout out as we kick things off here and get our warm-ups going and get ourselves geared up to get going here. The reason why, by the way, if you're wondering why chat is disabled, is chat can be a huge distraction for any side conversations that take place. With the Q&A box, I can see all of the items that you've submitted. Everyone on our team can see the items that you've submitted. So we can see when you've posted here inside the group. So I see a whole bunch of us. Nathaniel in the UK, Pano in Melbourne, Dan is from Hollywood, Tom, Iowa City, Laura in Temecula, California, Chris, Wilmington, North Carolina, James in Sarasota, Florida, Mike, Dallas, Texas, Maryland, Orlando, Florida, Deb in San Diego, Carla, good evening from Germany. Italia from Chile, Vince from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Sally from Rhode Island, small state, but a mighty state. Matthias from Hanover, Germany, Mary from Apple Valley, Minnesota, Mark, what's going on, from Las Vegas, Kelly from Canada, Katie from Toronto, Joel from Colorado, Dr. Josh from Kansas City, Anna from Cranbrook, British Columbia, Robert from Hot Atlanta, Georgia, Troy from Palmetto, Florida, Terrelyn from sunny Colorado, Portland, Maine, Minneapolis, Little Rock, North Carolina, Maryland. We've got an amazing crew here today. So you know where the Q&A is, and you know where to get started. I want to take this opportunity to introduce you to my co-host here today, who's going to be joining us here at key points along the way, who's going to be helping us through some of the exercises and work that we're going to be doing. If you've been part of some of our trainings in the past, you'll know how amazing this woman is, coming from the other side of the world in Australia. Can you believe it? I don't even know what time it is right now with the time zone change. That's the clock changes that have happened and not happened in Australia here in the United States. Please join me in welcoming my co-pilot here today, the one, the only, Ms. Michelle Falzone. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Ryan. Hey, everybody. Really great to be here. Yeah, I'm not in my usual office today. You might have noticed, anybody that usually sees my background, I'm coming to you live from the world famous Bondi Beach in Sydney right at this moment. And it is 5:07 a.m. I see a few fellow Aussies here, and to everybody here that's here early in the morning or late at night, we're so glad you're here. We're going to have a great time over the next little while together.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I could not be more excited. And there are two things that I want to introduce you to here today that we're going to be using inside of the Q&A. Michelle will be calling for this at certain points along the way. I might be calling for this at certain points along the way. And that is how to participate. So inside the Q&A box, we will be doing a few different exercises here. Along the way, I'm going to be inviting you to take some opportunities to let us know what your questions are. If at any point along the way you have a question on anything that we've touched on or talked about, I want to invite you inside the Q&A box to use hashtag, let me make this a little bit bolder and a little bit bigger, hashtag question, right? So hashtag question. That lets us know that you've got a question on something. We won't be able to get to every single question, but if there are a theme of questions that we're seeing or something that we think is particularly relevant, then we're going to take some time to address it. So if you've got a question, use hashtag question. Next up, anytime that you have an aha moment, an insight, a light bulb moment, something goes off for you, I want to invite you to use the hashtag nugget. Anytime that something stands out to you, use the hashtag nugget and let us know what that nugget is. So for example, if you have a aha moment, use hashtag nugget, let us know what it is in the chat thread. And periodically in our time here today, we might shout out a few of those nuggets. And, you know, we've been known to maybe acknowledge some of the best nuggets that are shared along the way. So if you've got a question, use hashtag question, let us know what the question is. If you've got a nugget or an aha moment, use hashtag nugget. All right. My first question that I'd love to invite you to take a moment to answer now, given that our topic of the day is the hybrid funnel transition, is to let us know how many of these town halls that we've been doing over the last few weeks that you've been part of. Now, the reason why this is really helpful for us to know is it's going to help me and Michelle determine how much recap we want to do on things that you may have missed along the way, and how much new stuff that we're going to cover that we haven't had an opportunity to speak to or address yet. So our first town hall was making the switch. Our second town hall was the hybrid program revolution. Our third town hall was the hybrid expert method. This is the hybrid funnel transition. Let us know inside the poll if this is your first town hall, second town hall, third town hall, or I'll give you a gold star if you've attended all 4 of our town halls so far. They have been live. There are no replays on these town halls. So if you're here today, you're in the right place and you're in store for a treat. You're a pro, you know how to do this. Use the poll inside of Zoom. I'll give you just another few seconds to take a moment to fill that in as I take a brief sip of water here. If you don't see the poll, it means that you do not have the latest version of Zoom. And I would encourage you after this call to upgrade and update your Zoom to the latest version of the application.
Ryan, I think a few people might be going to get some gold stars.
We do have some gold stars here, indeed. I'll give you 5 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. We're going to end the poll, see the results, and you can see where you stand. So about 60% of us, this is our first town hall. Third, 22% of us, second town hall, 12% of it, third, and 6% of us attended all 4. Perfect attendance. You officially win a gold star here. So given the numbers and where we are right now, I do want to take a moment to recap a few of the important points that we're going to be talking about here today, because when we dive into our main event, talking about this idea of the hybrid funnel and the hybrid funnel transition, it's going to build upon some of the work that we have done along the way. So let's take a look at some of the key concepts that we've talked about here, beginning with our first town hall, making the switch. So a few weeks ago, we introduced this idea of the hybrid expert. Now, what is a hybrid expert exactly? Hybrid expert, what we found is that there's an increasing number of people who are using their expertise in their business in some way, shape, or form, but don't necessarily identify as fitting in a box. Like, for example, you might not be a coach, you might not be a consultant, you might not be an author, you might not be a speaker, you might do a little bit of all the above, but not necessarily put yourself in any one of those boxes. You kind of do a mix of things, or in the words that we're using here, perhaps a hybrid of all the above. We've noticed that certainly in our business. I would consider myself a hybrid expert. I don't necessarily consider myself an author, even though I've written 2 books. I don't really necessarily consider myself a coach, even though I've done a lot of coaching. I don't necessarily consider myself a consultant, even though I've done a lot of consulting. And I don't necessarily consider myself a course creator, even though I've created a lot of courses in my career. I kind of am a bit of a hybrid of all the above. And as we started introducing this term, we found more and more people identify with this concept. Now, in the switch, we introduced the fact that when it comes to building a business in this space, a hybrid expert business, there are two key transitions that everybody goes through. When we first get started in this space, and by the way, this is one of these things I want to invite you, if you haven't done so already, this is a great opportunity to take out that piece of paper and the markers or pen or whatever you're using to sketch through and draw through what we're going to be working on here today. All right. So two transitions. When we first start out in business, right? We first start out in business, we all begin bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. That's the B, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We're all excited for all the possibilities that exist in the world. The world is our oyster. We can only see the positives of what's in front of us. That's the entrepreneurial optimism that I imagine most of us here possess. And then we go through the first big transition in our business, and that transition is what we call the leap. The first transition is what we call the leap, and it looks like this. The leap is where we decide for the first time to hang out our own shingle, to start our own business, to either leave our job and go into business for ourselves, or maybe moonlight and start a side hustle while we're working in that job. So we make the leap. And we expect when we make the leap that we're going to leap our way into success. But the reality is this. Oftentimes we land in this box right here that has the T, which stands for feeling tired and trapped. In other words, we find ourselves working more hours, making less money, and realize what we've created for ourselves is nothing short of a prison. We've created this prison for ourselves, and we're behind the bars. And we ask ourselves, what do we do? Am I crazy? Should I go back to over here? Should I go back to the beginning and start all over? But the only way forward is through. And the secret and the key is the second transition right here, which is the switch. Now, the switch is how we make a transition from going from feelings of tired and trapped to achieving the ultimate goal that most of us here, I imagine, share, which is freedom and flexibility. In other words, the ultimate goal of building a business that works around your life. The freedom to work when you want, where you want, location freedom, financial freedom, that freedom and flexibility. So the question is, excuse me, how do you go from tired and trapped to freedom and flexibility? Well, in a word, the answer is leverage. Now, when we talk about leverage here in our conversation, leverage is all about decoupling your income from your time. In other words, setting yourself up, creating a model, a system whereby you can have more impact and generate more income without having to work more hours. You've decoupled your income from your time. In other words, in order to double your income, you don't need to double your hours. You have leverage in your business. Now, before we go any further, I just want to kind of take a quick poll, get a quick pulse of where we're at right now and see where we're at. So Michelle, maybe you could kind of explain this next poll that we're going to throw up here just to get a read on where we're all at.
Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. I'd love to do that. So we're looking at a poll right now just to really understand, as Ryan said, exactly where everybody is at. And so the question is, which of the following best describes where you're at right now? I'm currently making the leap. I'm currently making the switch. Oh, hey, I've arrived, baby. I'm 100% in freedom and fulfillment. So we can see that you're giving us some answers there. And it is, it is so common, this kind of story that Ryan is telling us, this trajectory that we go through. And Ryan, I'll hand back to you as we gather up these results.
I'm going to give you about 5 more seconds, lightning round style. You guys are great. You're getting the hang of this right now. And this will be interesting for yourself just to see where you sit along the way. 3, 2, 1, pause, and we'll share the results. You can see right here, about 40% of us currently making the leap, about 56% of us making the switch, and 4% of us totally arrive. 8 of us here. I want to talk to you. I think we've got a lot to learn from you because I don't know that I've necessarily landed in this place myself. But you can see kind of where we're standing right now. So for those of you who said that you're making the switch, this is going to be incredibly relevant to everything that you might be going through right now. For those of you who are at this stage right now and you're looking to make the leap, well, what I'm going to show you is how to leapfrog this tired and trapped prison that you can avoid when you make some key decisions in your business. All right, moving right along, when we looked at the next town hall, the hybrid program revolution, we introduced that in this business that we're talking about, this hybrid expert model, this hybrid expert approach, there are three key pillars to be successful. We call these three key pillars the following: attract, enroll, and deliver. Now, what does this refer to? Well, deliver refers to the way in which you deliver your products or services to your clients, how you deliver a transformation to your students, to your clients, to your customers. Enroll is how you convert non-customers into buyers, how you sell, how you enroll people into your program. And last but not least, attract is how you attract strangers into your world who become leads, who then buy and enroll in your program. So we have attract, enroll, and deliver. Now, the secret to success, as I found, and certainly with our most successful students, is instead of trying to do all of the things in each of these areas, it's about narrowing your focus, putting the blinders on, and having one path to success. I have a mentor that once used to say, there are a million ways to make $1 million. You got to pick one. So we have this philosophy here that is what we call 1-1-1, focusing on one way to attract, one way to enroll, and one way to deliver, so that you have all roads leading to Rome. You're not selling 1 million different products and services. You've got one thing that all roads are leading to: 1-1-1. Now, when we introduce this idea of leverage, there is leverage that you can achieve and accomplish in each of these three key pillars. And the leverage looks like the following. So in each of these three key pillars, attract, enroll, deliver, there is a path to go from tired and trapped to freedom and flexibility. We need to focus on each of these pillars individually and in isolation. And each of these pillars has a path that represents a low leverage way of doing things, coupled with a high leverage way of doing things. So on the deliver pillar, as an example, the low leverage way of doing things is offering a one-to-one service. Now, there's nothing wrong with one-to-one, but what it means is the only way that you can have more leverage is by taking on more clients. To grow your income and impact, you've got to work more hours and work with more people. The alternative to that, the high leverage approach, is what we call a group mode of delivery. Instead of working with people one-on-one, you're working with people in a group setting. On the enroll side of the equation, the low leverage approach of enrolling people into your program is to do individual one-on-one calls, where every single conversation that you're having with someone is unique. The high leverage way of enrolling people is to have some form of recorded presentation that takes people in a group setting from not knowing what it is that you do and how you work with people into some form of group enrollment process. Last but not least, on the attract pillar, the tired and trapped, low leverage way of doing things is relying on one-on-one warm contacts that you might already have. The high leverage way of doing things is transitioning from relying on warm contacts to being able to get cold traffic, i.e. strangers on the internet who don't necessarily know who you are, to pay you money. So low leverage to high leverage, the path to go from tired and trapped to freedom and flexibility is from one-on-one to group, from one-on-one calls to group presentation, to one-on-one warm contacts, to strangers on the internet in the form of cold traffic that you can reach people in a much larger scale. So I want to pause once again. We're going to do another poll here. And I'm just curious, if you were to isolate and pick just one of these key pillars in your business right now, which of these areas of your business, whether it's attract, enroll, deliver, if you were to achieve more leverage in that area, could make the biggest difference on your business and in your life? Go ahead inside the poll. Let us know where you stand right now. Take a moment to do that. I'll give you just a few seconds as I take a sip of water to do that. I'll share the results in just a moment. And Michelle, I'll invite you, if there's anything that's worth either speaking to or addressing or bringing up inside the comments that have come through, inside the Q&A, that either is a question that's come up or a nugget or an observation that you think is worth sharing, as we give folks just another minute or so to fill out this poll and give me a chance to take a sip of water.
Yeah, of course. I just wanted to share this comment from Carla when you were speaking about the hybrid expert, and you know how you're a bit of this. You don't necessarily see yourself as an author or as a course creator, even though you are all of those things. I thought this comment from Carla was really insightful. She says, I'm an individualist. I don't fit in any box. And I think that's kind of what that hybrid idea is. And Catherine says, I've got clarity on what I want to do to make the switch, but I think it's the grind to wrap up the burdens of what I'm under and build the framework that will enable me to make the switch. And I think we're going to really help with that today.
Beautiful. I love those comments, and I love this poll. We're going to share the results here, and you can see, look at the numbers. 60% of us focused on attraction could be the biggest leverage point in our business, 29% on the enrollment stage of our business model, and then 12% of us on delivery. Now, the good news is this. I think for the majority of us here today, focusing on that attraction phase, that is where we're going to be focusing. We're going to be focusing on that pillar right here. Now, I want to just speak to these key leverage points in each of these three areas that are going to be relevant to our conversation here today, which we've introduced, but I want to address here today. So what is the way to make that transition? Well, we've alluded to these a moment ago, and I want to define and articulate them right here, right now. On the deliver side, so the way to go from low leverage to high leverage in the delivery pillar in your business is to use what we call a hybrid program. And we'll spend some time defining what that means exactly and how that fits into your business. On the enroll side of the equation, we're going to introduce briefly this idea of a hybrid workshop, a group enrollment process that follows a very specific paradigm and pattern to enroll people into your program in a group setting. And last but not least, on the attract side of the equation, we have what we call a hybrid funnel. And that is going to be our main focus here today in the time that we have in today's town hall. So moving right along, hybrid funnel, hybrid workshop to a hybrid program. What does that look like exactly? There's one other piece of the equation that we're not going to touch on here today, but just for the avoidance of doubt and for posterity, for those of you who did attend the previous town hall that we had a session that was entirely focused on this step right here, the step that happens before all the above, which is what we call the design step or the redesign step. This is where we actually take a look at what is working and not working on your attraction phase of your business. What is working and not working in the enrollment pillar of your business, and what is working and what is not working in the delivery pillar of your business, taking what's not working and looking at what is working, designing or redesigning your message, your offer, and your model, all based on that information. And the way we do that is by using what we call a hybrid deep dive survey. Now, Deep Dive Survey is a research tool that we developed here at the Ask Method Company that's all about getting the message from your market and not from your mind. The hybrid approach to this Deep Dive Survey leverages the power of AI to pull natural language that already exists out there in the world and in your market, and leveraging that natural language across every phase of your business. And we did a deep dive in that process on the previous town hall where we looked at how to use the power of AI to do that very thing. All right, moving along, again, the focus of our conversation here today is attract. Now, attract is all about your funnel, how you attract leads into your world, how you take strangers on the internet who don't know who you are at all and convert them into potential prospects and eventually clients for your program, whatever it is that you might be selling. And that's what we're going to be focusing on here today. But with any good funnel, you want to first have clarity on where you are sending people. What is the ultimate destination? And to do that, we are going to first start with the end in mind, which is right here, the delivery phase of your business. Now, looking at this model right here and knowing that the ultimate solution that we're going to be spending some time talking about here today is this idea of a hybrid program, let's begin there. Let's start with the end in mind, because at the end of the day, when you think about your funnel is going to end with the destination that you want to send people into, presumably the thing that you're selling, your product or service, your deliverable. So let's take a look at this idea of the hybrid program, which is the key to going from that one-on-one tired and trapped paradigm to that freedom and flexibility group model. Hybrid program, what is it exactly? I want to encourage you, as you're following along, to take out a piece of paper if you haven't already done so and start sketching out these diagrams, because this is a great micro exercise that's going to give you clarity on your own business and your own model. So what is a hybrid program exactly? Well, what we found is that for many people that we work with, many experts that we support and serve, that there are a number of menu options available when it comes to how are you going to deliver your transformation for your clients. Of course, there are a whole bunch of different options that you can choose from. You could build an online course. You could build a membership, as an example. You could potentially have some form of a coaching program, some sort of coaching. You could have an event-based model where you work with people in a leverage setting via some form of event, whether that's a virtual event or a in-person event, or perhaps maybe the best option is, instead of restricting yourself to any one of those different approaches, maybe picking a hybrid of all the above. And that serves as the foundation for this idea of a hybrid program. A hybrid program is a program that gives you permission to pull the best elements that works for you, that works with your personality, that works with your priorities, that allows you to build a business that works around your life. And what I want to take you through now is an exercise that's going to help give you some clarity on what your hybrid program might look like. It might be a way to look at your existing program that you're selling and perhaps fix some of the things that maybe aren't working. It could be a way to design a new program if you're looking to launch something new. So if we shift our attention to the right-hand side of the screen here and we go through this process together, I want to invite you to think about a few different possibilities as you're reflecting on your own way of delivering your own program. First question that you want to be thinking about is, what type of duration is your program? In other words, is it a fixed duration program? Is it a 1 month or a 3 month or a 6 month or a 12-month program? I'm actually going to highlight this so it stands out a bit. Or is it an ongoing program? In other words, there's no end date. You bring someone in and you work with them forever, for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years or more. So what is the duration of your program? First thing to begin reflecting on. And I'll invite you to just take a moment right now to just think what might make the most sense for you. Now, by the way, if you're not sure or if you're launching something new, I'm going to encourage you to lean towards a fixed duration program, a program that allows you to have a start time and an end time. Why is that? When you have a fixed duration program, it gives you the opportunity to reflect and review after the program is over and decide, are there things that you want to keep doing? Are there things that you want to stop doing? And are there things that you want to do different? If you have an ongoing program that goes on forever, it's harder to make those types of changes. Michelle, anything that you want to add to that as I take a sip of water here and catch my breath?
Ryan, I wanted to just say there's a few people using the hashtag question and the hashtag nugget, and I just wanted to remind you, popping those hashtag nuggets in is a great way for you to just kind of capture your thoughts, and we will be reading those out. And I wanted to just mention Bridget's nugget of get your message from your market, not your mind, and a few other good nuggets that we've seen here. So we will give you a shout out when you share those nuggets. So go ahead and do that. And remember, hashtag question, because I am looking at the questions right now and we will be creating some space for those. So go ahead and ask those. Beautiful.
And the one thing that I'll clarify right here, when we're talking about these options, these are all options to make that transition, to go from that one-on-one low leveraged form of delivery to the one-to-many much higher leverage form of delivering your products or services. So as you're looking at these options right here, just something for you to be thinking about in this journey of discovery. Okay. Now, once you've kind of got some sense on the duration of your program, there are 4 key areas that every type of program needs to include when you're thinking about the delivery to your clients. And these program areas are as follows. Number 1, you need to have a way that you are offering some form of teaching. After all, if you're leveraging your expertise and you are tying that as a key part of your business, there's going to be a teaching element inside of your program. Now, teaching elements could include everything from live teaching, where you're doing live sessions. This is a live session right now. You could do recorded trainings that people get access to either on demand or at a certain cadence. You could do more of an event-based model where you're teaching in a fixed term event. Maybe you have a 1-day intensive or a 3-day boot camp that you're offering that is more of an event-based model. And as you decide which one is right for you, or you might have something totally different, right? Something that's totally different from the above. When you decide kind of which option is right for you, you also want to be thinking about the cadence of that. Are you doing a live training every single week? Are you doing a recorded training that gets delivered daily? Are you doing an event? I wrote the word event twice. Just goes to show it's harder to talk and write at the same time than it may look. If you do more of an event-based model, are you doing a monthly event, right? So you want to think about the pacing of this, and it helps you kind of really start to put some scaffolding around the program that you might be delivering. Next area to focus on is the area of interaction. How are you going to be interacting with your clients? So interaction can take a number of different forms. So if we look at interaction, interaction could be in the form of small group discussions. So you could do small group discussion where people get to interact with one another. You could do Q&A calls where people have an opportunity to submit their questions to you or a member of your team, either in advance or live on the session, and you're answering those questions one-on-one. You might do a hot seat model where you take an example, take an actual client's life or business or circumstances and walk people through how you would solve their problems. And people can learn by seeing these examples in action. Once again, same decision. Where do you see yourself? Both in terms of the type of interaction that you might offer, as well as the pace and cadence of those interaction points. Next up, we have community. You want to think about how are you going to be building a community around your student base, around your clients, and what level of prominence is this community going to play? Is it a large part of your program or a small part of your program? Is it a key cornerstone, or is it something that's kind of tangential to what it is that you might be delivering? Options for community include everything from a Facebook group to doing something like a WhatsApp thread, or a Telegram thread, or something like a Signal thread. Any one of these utilities are great options. You might consider a third-party software product like Circle, SO, or perhaps Mighty Networks or something like that. Or you might have another idea entirely different from the list above. But you want to be thinking about how you're incorporating community inside your program and what's the delivery of that. Last but not least, when you're envisioning your hybrid program, whether you've got one right now or you are looking at building something, is how are you offering support? So when someone has a one-on-one question and they need to reach out to you or your team, how are you offering support? And you've got several different options to consider here in this list. Like, for example, are you going to be doing email support? If someone needs help with something, are you going to give them the opportunity to email you? Maybe this is where you might have a one-to-one call with your clients so that you still are meeting with people on a one-to-one basis to support them in the more intimate areas of their life or business, but you're working with people in a group setting to have that leverage to take you from tired and trapped to freedom and flexibility. Perhaps you're leveraging the power of something like a knowledge base where you're putting all the most frequently asked questions in an area that people can self-access where and when they need it. All right. So as you're looking at these options right here, the thing to be thinking about is before you add unnecessary complexity to your offer, ideally you want to have one way of teaching, one way of interacting, one form of community, and one form of one-on-one support. Adding more than one item in each of these areas adds unnecessary complexity to your offer and to your business and puts you squarely in that tired and trapped prison that you want to avoid putting yourself into. This is a key takeaway. You can always add more elements to your program in the future. It's incredibly difficult to take things away from people when you've already made it available. So what does your hybrid program look like? Are you doing live teaching on a weekly basis, doing small group interaction once a month with a Facebook community and a one-on-one call? Or are you doing recorded training that happens on a daily basis with a monthly hot seat call for your clients, putting together a WhatsApp group and maybe giving people access to email support when they need questions answered? There's no one size fits all answer, but that's the beautiful part about this model. This model that you see right here helps you build a business that works around your life. You get to choose which pieces and components work for you and which components may be something that don't fit with your goals and your objectives in your business and in your life. All right, I'm going to pause here for a moment. I wanted to just take a moment to reflect on this hybrid program piece, because before we can get clear on the funnel, we need to have clarity on the destination where we're sending people. Knowing what that looks like is going to help us inform the funnel itself. Michelle, before we go any deeper and dive into the hybrid funnel transition, which is our kind of main focus here today, is there anything that you think is either worth mentioning, anything that I may have missed, any questions or nuggets that are worth addressing before we get into the next little segment that we want to focus on?
Ryan, just a couple of things. I just wanted to really reiterate what you said about just start with one thing in each of those boxes, because it's really easy to overshoot the mark. And when we're just getting started, we think, oh, I have to give people this, and I have to give people that, and I have to give people this. And you overload your program. And guess what happens when you overload your program? You overload your students and you overload yourself. You find your way back to tired and trapped. So this is really the key to finding that flexibility and that freedom that Ryan is talking about. It's really having that opportunity to deliver exactly what your clients need. And that's the power of this hybrid program. It's giving you these few levers. And Ryan, a few people have picked up on that. Hey, I don't belong in a box kind of idea. And I wanted to mention something Troy Heiner said. He says, I don't fit in a box, and neither do my ideal clients. And so this hybrid program kind of gives you this opportunity it's like a pick and mix. You can think, look, my clients don't want to be in a Facebook group, but they really would thrive in a WhatsApp group. Or my clients just want to be able to email me whenever they want, or they actually would really like the opportunity for a one-to-one call less frequently. So you get to kind of calibrate based on what your people really want and need and what works for you. So I just wanted to really reiterate the beauty of this hybrid program and the importance of really focusing on that as we now move to creating the funnel. How do we sell the hybrid program? How do we get people to know about the hybrid program?
Exactly. And I love that you brought that up, because you're absolutely right. None of us want to be in a box. None of us want to be forced in a box. And what this does, it gives you the structure and constraints to help make key decisions in your business, whilst having the flexibility to make the decisions that work for you. It's that blend and that optionality that is key. So let's answer that question, which is this idea of, okay, we have a sense for what it is that we're selling. We know all roads lead to Rome. We've got our all roads lead to offer, our hybrid program that's at the end of this equation. How are we getting people there in the first place? How are we making this key transition to be able to go from relying on warm contacts and relationships that we might already know to being able to get cold traffic, strangers on the internet, to pay us money in a way that is incredibly effective and allows us to build trust quickly with people who might not have familiarity with our work and with our brand? Well, this is where the hybrid funnel comes in. Let's take a moment to just look at what a funnel is at the highest level, and then we're going to go into detail on this idea of this hybrid funnel and the hybrid funnel transition. So if we overlay this idea of a funnel in a nutshell is a series of steps that you might ask someone to take to go from not knowing who you are to becoming a paid client or customer. We know that the end destination that we're driving people into is this hybrid program, and there are likely going to be a series of steps generically that we might want to invite people to take to get from point A to point B. We might have a series of steps that are designed to attract people into our world, and then from there, get them to go from being a cold lead to a warm prospect and enroll in our paid product or service, and then ultimately land in this hybrid program destination that we want to be putting in place. Now, for years, we've spent time talking about the power of segmentation, putting people into different buckets based on their unique situation so that you can customize the way in which you speak to people. Now, this can be an incredibly effective strategy, but it is not without some challenges and some work. When you think about it, if you're going to put people into different buckets based on their unique set of circumstances, then by doing so, you can see right here that that means that we're going to have to duplicate a fair bit of work that we might have for ourselves in our business. You can see right here that just to have 5 different types of people, for example, that we might want to cater to, we've increased the amount of work by 5x. It's 5 times as much work to put people into all these different buckets. So it can be an incredibly effective strategy, but it's not one that is without its challenges and its fair share of work to actually make possible. So this is where the hybrid funnel comes in, because instead of moving to what most people do, which is what we call a one-size-fits-all funnel, where all roads lead to the same place and through the same route, we're not taking into account that different people tend to behave differently. But imagine if there was a way to, instead of segmenting people based on their bucket, we could segment people based on something known as their buyer type, or in other words, their buyer persona. So let's take a moment to talk a little bit about this idea of buyer type or buyer persona. So in the world, there are 4 different types of buyers. And I'll take a moment to showcase and share what each of these are one by one. Make that a little bit bigger here. I must have erased that. Here we go. Let's take a moment to identify the 4 buyer types. 4 buyer types. And as we go through these buyer types, I want to invite you to think about and reflect on which of these buyer types best corresponds to you. Which one do you most identify with as we go through each one? All right, first type of buyer is what we call the spontaneous buyer. Now, the spontaneous buyer is the type of person who tends to be motivated by the new and novel. Something is new, it's just launched, they've got to get their hands on it. These are the people who wait outside the Apple store every time a new Apple device is launched. These are the people who see a new movie the day that it debuts. These are the people who sign up for that new video game to start playing as soon as it launches inside the world. Spontaneous buyers are motivated by the new, the novel, the something different that they can get their hands on, and they're ready to dive in right away. Now, spontaneous buyers can be contrasted with what we call methodical buyers. Methodical buyers are very different. Methodical buyers are not motivated, methodical, by the new and novel, not motivated by diving into something new. Methodical buyers, frankly, have questions. They want to know facts and figures. They want to know the details. Before they sign up for something, they want to read all the tech specs. They read all of the most frequently asked questions. They want to know all the details before they're ready to move forward and make a purchasing decision. Now, the spontaneous and methodical buyers can be contrasted with what we call the humanistic buyer. The humanistic buyer is a buyer who is not necessarily motivated by the new and novel, not motivated by facts and figures, but instead is motivated by making a connection through other humans who've had an experience with that product or service. They're moved by story. They're moved by a connection. They're moved by hearing about someone who went through the experience, who signed up for the product, who signed up for the program, and what their experience was like. They might not know all the facts and figures. They might not know all the details, but that connection that they've made with that other buyer, that other client, that other student of yours is enough for them to say, you know what, I'm going to do this. And last but not least, we have the 4th and final buyer type, which is known as the competitive buyer. Competitive buyers are otherwise known as deadline dancers. Competitive buyers are the buyers that exist in the world that are not motivated by anything else other than the fact that there's a deadline to take action now. These are the people in the world who are motivated by going to an airport for a flight and timing how little time they need to make their way from their home to the gate without missing their flight and trying to do it in the least amount of time possible. They're motivated by the adrenaline rush that comes from waiting to the last minute and moving forward when and only when there's a deadline to take action. All right. So this is the backdrop for the next part of our conversation. And I want to pause right here, right now. And I want to invite you just to reflect on, if you had to choose just one, which of these 4 buyer types do you think best responds with the way you typically buy? Go ahead. We've got a poll right here. You can let us know inside the poll, which of the following best describes where you tend to sit. And by the way, there are only right answers here. There's no better or worse in any of this. It's just different. And take a moment to reflect on that. I'll give you a few more seconds inside the poll. Michelle, anything that you care to add as folks are filling this out on the screen right now inside of Zoom?
Well, we are going to, I want to just kind of give people this joining of the dots. I know you're going to do this a little further on, Ryan, but remember Ryan was showing us that one size fits all funnel that, you know, you're just trying to speak to one kind of giant mass of people and you're not really reaching anybody in any kind of individualized way. There's that one size fits all. And then we're contrasting that with, you know, pure segmentation where you're really kind of creating multiple different funnels dealing with multiple different people. These buyer types that Ryan is showing you gives you that ease of one funnel, but how you can speak to people individually in that one funnel. And so just hold this kind of importance of this concept in your mind as we get a little further into today's training. But knowing your own buyer type is really useful as well, isn't it, Ryan?
It absolutely is. And I'll jump into that in just a moment. First, I want to give you 3 more seconds, 2 more seconds, 1 more second to fill out the poll. We'll share the results. You can see where this group stacks up right here. So 17% of us identify as spontaneous, 46% of us identify as methodical, 25% of us identify as humanistic, and 12% of us identify as competitive. Now, what's fascinating about this is I've gone through this exercise with different groups, and every single time we've gone through this exercise, the group has a different mix. It's fascinating. Now, here's the thing with buyer types, and this is worth writing down and worth thinking about. The way we tend to buy also corresponds with the way in which we tend to market. In other words, we have a natural bias toward the way we like to purchase things, and we kind of see the world through that lens. So for those of us who are spontaneous buyers, we tend to think that the world buys based on the spontaneous triggers that get us to move forward. If we're more of a methodical buyer, we tend to think that the world purchases and makes purchasing decisions based on the methodical way that we tend to have. If you're a humanistic buyer, then we tend to see the world through the humanistic lens and sort of assume that people see it in that same way. And similarly, if we're a competitive buyer, we tend to lean more heavily on triggers and mechanisms that appeal to the competitive buyer. So the question to reflect on right now is, where might you be introducing biases inside of your own marketing, whereby you might be potentially leaving on the table and alienating as much as 3/4 or more of your market? So how does this play out? How do we connect this into our funnel? Well, the hybrid approach that Michelle mentioned just a moment ago, instead of trying to segment people into a bunch of different buckets, and instead of having a one-size-fits-all funnel, well, perhaps there are key places along the way that we want to address people of different buyer types. Like, for example, maybe we have a different type of post or ad that we take people through, that corresponds to the different buyer types. Maybe we have a spontaneous ad that espouses the new and novel and how something is just being launched. Maybe we have a different post that's more geared toward the methodicals with a lot of text and a lot of details and facts and figures. Maybe we have a story-based post or ad that really speaks to the humanistic buyer in the market. And perhaps we have a competitive ad that really focuses on the deadline to take action or move forward. So in a way, what this allows us to do is apply segmentation before people actually reach our funnel. And then when they get into the funnel itself, perhaps there's some key places along the way, instead of being monotonistic or having a singular way of speaking to people on any one of these key points, perhaps we integrate all of it. Maybe there's some elements on this page that speak to the spontaneous buyer. We have some elements on this page that speak to the methodical buyer. We have other elements on this page that speak to the humanistic buyer, and other elements on this page that speak to the competitive buyer. And we do the same thing in our workshop. We have some elements of our workshop that speak to the spontaneous, some elements that speak to the methodical, some that speak to our humanistic buyer, and some that speak to our competitive. And the thing to be looking at is asking yourself, where might you be falling short? Where are the gaps that exist in your communication style based purely on the bias that we all inherently have in our own marketing? Now, the reality is none of us quite fit in a box. None of us are squarely in any one of these four boxes. We all have elements of all the above. We all have some spontaneous in us, some methodical in us, some humanistic in us, some competitive in us. And for that reason, the hybrid approach allows you to simultaneously identify what a person's primary type might be. And then along the way, inside your funnel, speak to people in a multidimensional way that addresses each of the four buyer personas, moving through each step along the way. Now, Michelle, before we move any further, I think this is a good opportunity to maybe take a quick pause and see what questions have come through, and if there's anything that's surfaced or anything that's come up so far in our conversation before we move forward on anything that we've touched on, whether it is related to the four buyer types, whether it is related to this idea of using the hybrid funnel approach, whether it is based on the hybrid program model that we introduced a few moments ago, making that pivot from one-to-one to group, whether it is on any of the elements that we introduced early on in our conversation here, the key transitions inside your business, or anything that we've touched on or spoken about here so far today. I'm going to unshare my screen, Michelle, give you an opportunity to turn to our Q&A box before we get to our next section here in just a moment, and do a brief check-in for any questions that are worth addressing.
Of course. So Ryan, we've got a couple of questions asking for a little more clarity about the different buyer types. And I'll just share both of these because you can probably answer them both at the same time. Shannon's question, she says, or he says, I'm not sure. Question is spontaneous the same as like what we might refer to as an early adopter? And is the methodical same as like an analytical? And maybe Shannon's referring to other kinds of frameworks and trying to map them over.
Yeah, it's a great question. So spontaneous buyers can be early adopters, but aren't necessarily always early adopters. They're motivated in a different way. They tend to be motivated by the excitement around something. They find out about something and they're ready to sign up right away. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're an early adopter to a new product or service. If Michelle invited me to come to Sydney to hang out at Bondi Beach, the spontaneous buyer is going to say, I'm in, like, let me book my flight, I'm in. Bondi Beach is not new, but the invitation is such that I'm ready to dive right in. I don't need a whole lot more information than that. Like, I'm sold, sign me up. That's the spontaneous person in your life. The methodical person in your life is going to say, well, time out, Michelle, like, where are you staying? Like, what do I need any vaccines to travel abroad? Like, what is the airport like these days? Like, what is security like? Like, tell me, like, is it busy season? What's the temperature range right now? What's the precipitation like? What should I dress? What should I wear? What kind of food are we going to be eating? You know, I'm on a gluten-free diet and I'm not eating any meat right now, so I need to make sure that there are good restaurants around me. Methodical buyers have a million questions. So yes, they tend to be more analytical in nature, but we're talking specifically about their buying propensity, their buying habits, and the level of satisfaction they need to have around having their questions answered before they're ready to move forward. I'll give you an example of one of the most egregious examples of a spontaneous buyer that I've experienced in my career. Years ago, we had a program in our business that we sold, which was a $40,000 per year high-level mastermind for CEOs. It was $40,000 per year. It was a group limited to 40 people, and we introduced this program via a written piece of mail. It was a 14 or 18-page letter that went out in the mail that explained all the details on how this mastermind works and what it all included. Well, years later, after the program was in place for a number of years, one of the members in the group quietly admitted to me that when she received this letter in the mail, she read the headline flipped it over to the back page, which included a link to move forward, and that was it. She didn't read anything in the middle. She didn't read any of the 14 to 18 pages of detail that explained everything that you get access to. She read the headline and said, I instantly knew this was right for me. That is a spontaneous buyer. Now, it's not to say the spontaneous buyer is better than the methodical buyer, because you might say, man, I'd love to have a whole bunch of spontaneous buyers in my life. Well, spontaneous buyers have questions after they purchase. They're the type of people that after they buy, they say, wait a second, time out. What did I sign up for? I don't know what I got access to. It shows up in different ways for different people. But the thing to be mindful of here is, as you're designing and building your funnel, is that you're speaking to each of these 4 different buyer types. You're not leaning too heavily on one buyer way of selling over any of the others, and recognizing that you will naturally have a bias. There will be a way of communicating that comes more natural to you than the others, and that corresponds with your style of buying, because we like to sell in the same way that we like to buy.
Yeah, that's awesome, Ryan. And I wanted to share a nugget that Ian shared that's very related to what you just shared there. Ian says, wow, I just realized I've been selling to clients for 12 plus years, assuming they're motivated by everything except the one I've tried. I think they're actually methodical, and I haven't been speaking to them that way. And I think that can be, we can have a blind spot, or we can be overdoing one of these and not really giving the balance to the others. And I think that really leads on, and you've really touched on this, but I wanted to just kind of get to a question here from Bridget, just to get you to dive a bit deeper into this, Ryan. Bridget says, is the goal to always appeal to and bring in all buyer types, or is it okay to try to only appeal to 1 or 2 types at a time? How would you calibrate that?
Well, the answer is it's a hybrid. There's some mechanisms where it makes sense to address all 4 buyer types in the same medium, because there are 2 things happening. It's not practical to have 4 different versions of everything in your business. 4 different versions of your product, 4 different versions of your workshop, 4 different versions of your funnel. It's not practical to do that. At the same time, there are some places, and we'll take a look at a real funnel here in just a moment to illustrate what this actually looks like, where you might want to have a dedicated piece of content. Perhaps you have one email that's really geared toward the humanistic buyers in your audience. Another email that's really geared to the methodicals. Another email that's really geared to the spontaneous and the competitives. But when you're doing a workshop, for example, you might not have 4 different versions of your workshop, because it's simply not practical to do that. That's the first thing to be thinking about. The second thing to be thinking about is, remember, we are complex beings. None of us want to fit in a box. For the same reason why we don't want to be told what to do and say, hey, I'm this, I'm a hybrid. I'm a mix. I kind of do a little bit of my own thing. I consider myself this. We all have a unique answer to that question. And instead of putting your clients in a box, by identifying what their dominant or primary buyer persona is, you can address that and acknowledge that. But at the same time, recognizing that we're complex beings and that we have a little bit of all of this in us, we can touch on all 4 of our buyer types on most elements in our funnel. This is the hybrid approach. Now, I teased a moment ago that I would showcase inside an actual real funnel. So I want to take you through a sketch of what a real funnel can look like and how you can incorporate the 4 buyer personas at key points along the way inside your funnel. So if you bear with me one second, I'm going to pull up my screen once again, and we're going to take a look at this right now. And it should take a second to just pop right up. Okay, great. So we're going to look at an actual real funnel, and I'm going to go phase by phase in this funnel that's going to show you how you take people from attract to enroll to deliver in 4 key phases. And we're going to touch on, within each of these key phases, how and where you can address each of the 4 buyer types at key points along the way to have that hybrid funnel approach, beginning with phase 1. So phase 1, which is coded here in yellow, representing a key part of the attract pillar in your business, might look like this. So you might have a series of different things that you use to drive traffic, whether that is Google or Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or YouTube or something else altogether, coupled with perhaps the audience of people that you have in your world right now via email or another platform, driving people to a registration page that is designed to register people for your hybrid workshop. And then, of course, a series of steps that ask for their contact information and confirm their registration. Now, with our hybrid funnel approach, you might have, as we expressed a little bit earlier, perhaps 4 different videos that you might have in place if you're using YouTube as a traffic source, or 4 different posts on Facebook, each of which corresponding to each of the 4 buyer types. You might even have a 5th one that kind of captures all the above. That's sort of a mix of all 4 buyer personas. Then when we get to the registration page, driving people to the workshop, on that page, you want to be cognizant. You can think about it in terms of the colors that we've just looked at a moment ago. Do you have enough proverbial red on your page? Do you have enough proverbial yellow on your page? Enough of the proverbial blue and proverbial green on your page? Not literally those colors, but those colors representing the attention that you're giving to each of the 4 buyer types. As we move to phase 2 of the funnel, after someone has registered for your workshop, the next key phase is to get them to actually attend the workshop. And this, as you'll see here in phase 2, is where we begin to transition from the attract phase of our process into enroll. So we have a series of sequences after someone is registered for our workshop in the form of email, text message, maybe remarketing sequences, all of which are designed to get people to show up. They've signed up, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're showing up. We got to get them to actually show up to our live workshop. And inside the live workshop, we've got elements that cater to each of the 4 buyer types. Have you noticed how on this town hall, we've had elements, if you think about this in a meta nugget, that speak to and cater to and address each of the 4 different buyer personas? Can you think of what they are? This is one of the games within the game. So you can see what this looks like in action. Moving along to the next step in our funnel right here, as I pull this up once again, you'll see we drive people to actually show up for a live workshop, which is represented right here. And then from there, we might have a checkout page that perhaps drives people to an application to our program. And the application asks a series of questions. Now, with the answers to these questions, do you think it might be valuable to know a little bit more about a person's buyer type based on the questions that you're asking? Absolutely. After they've applied to your program, you might invite them to book a call with you and then confirm that their call is booked. So we take people from attending your workshop to submitting an application for your program to then booking a call with you or a member of your team, whereby gathering all of this useful information from this particular client, we now can get to phase 3 of our funnel. Phase 3, we're now squarely in enroll, where we want to get people to show up for their call. So show up for that one-on-one call that they're having. And on that call, we want to get them to join the program to move from here. Now, what's beautiful about this is because we've asked for all this great information, and because this call is most typically going to be a one-on-one session, whether it's Zoom or over the phone, whereby we're leveraging the group presentation that they've already experienced. They've already gone through this common information. You're not having to repeat yourself 400 different times. Instead, you're able to leverage the work that you've done in this group setting so that you can have a private one-on-one conversation, answer any final questions that that person might have, and guide them to the checkout process. Knowing that that person is, for example, a methodical buyer is going to help you guide that call in a different way than if you found out that they are a spontaneous buyer. And then after phase 3 and they've joined the program, last but not least, we take them into phase 4. We're squarely in blue now, phase 4, where we want them to welcome and start the program, ideally get results as quickly as possible with some quick wins so that they can become your next great success story with a smile on their face. 4 phases in this funnel. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. And what we've done is we've sprinkled the 4 buyer types throughout this entire funnel at key leverage points along the way, giving us the ability to create the perception of a funnel that speaks to an individual based on their unique buying persona, while at the same time eliminating the complexity that you might have with a further form of segmentation. So Michelle, with all that in mind and the time that we have remaining before we need to wrap things up, I'm going to hit the pause button right here, give us an opportunity to get any questions answered, and then we're going to bring things to a close today with an exercise. And I've got a special next step for everybody who might be interested in perhaps seeing some examples of what this looks like in real live businesses of real live people who are using this right here, right now. Michelle.
Ryan, there's a few people kind of going, this is great. Like a lot of pennies are dropping for people. And Shannon says, Nugget, this is why I see your ads for these town halls as different all over social media. I've even signed up several times to the same event because the ad was different. Brilliant. And thank you. I understand now. And so this is, you see Ryan's diagram there of, you're doing Facebook ads, but you can do the ad that is very much new. Hey, quick, this is like brand new, never done before. You can have another ad that is more telling a story, another ad that's answering some key questions or providing some data and dates and times, and another ad that's like, quick, this is about to happen. You're about to miss out, like last chance. And so you're speaking to the different parts of each of the people in your market, and you're really getting them interested in their key or primary driver. So you've seen this already in action. If you've been, anything that you clicked on to come to this town hall has likely been something that is directed to a particular buyer type. So the emails, the ads, you've seen this in action already. Ryan, Sandy has a question about one-to-one calls. So Sandy says, I thought we wanted to get away from one-to-one calls. And maybe you can just explain that leverage shift from one-to-one and how we can still feature that in the process, because it's still a key part of the funnel, right?
Absolutely. So it's a great question, and I'm glad that you brought it up. So one of the things that you find if you are relying on one-on-one calls without some form of group leverage presentation to do the heavy lifting is that you're spending a lot of time doing a few things on these calls. Number one, you're spending a lot of time repeating yourself. You're saying the same things over and over again. You're explaining how your program works. You're addressing the biggest objections that people tend to have. And every call feels like you are a broken record saying the same thing. Anybody here doing one-on-one calls? You ever feel that way? Yeah, where it's like, I'm having, like I can have the conversation in my sleep, right? So those things that you find yourself repeating, take it out of the one-on-one call and incorporate it into your group presentation. So now instead of having to repeat yourself, you're saying those things, you're passing that message, you're making that explanation to a group of people so that when you're having the one-on-one call, the conversation that you're having is addressing that individual's unique set of circumstances and questions. That's the first thing. The second thing is you'll find that when you leverage the power of a group presentation before you drive people into the one-on-one call, your close rate is going to go way up. Why is that? It's because you are pre-qualifying people based on the experience that they're having inside of your hybrid workshop. You're taking people through a set of steps, a set of ideas where you're educating them both on the ideas that you believe in and what you stand for, as well as how your product or service works. So that the people who are just tire kickers, who are just kind of interested in wasting your time because they've got nothing else better to do, you're able to put a step in place that pre-qualifies them before they actually get on the call. The third dynamic is when you shift to an application model. Instead of inviting people to book a call to pick your brain, you're inviting people to apply to your program. Now you've shifted the dynamic. You've shifted the dynamic in such a way that the nature of the call, the structure of the call is for the individual to find out if they qualify for your program. Bonus tip, when you make it an actual paid application, you virtually eliminate any of those people who would otherwise waste your time. So you're taking your close rate from being very, very small to very, very big. You're taking the number of wasted calls that you might otherwise have from a very big number to a very small number. You're concentrating your time, focusing only on the absolute best prospects. So you're having much more leverage on one of these key points. There's so many things, just like the hybrid funnel piece of the equation, that are worth putting people into different segments based on their circumstances. On the enrollment side of the equation, there are many, many aspects that make sense to do in a group setting. One of those key points, getting people to cross the divide, that final step where they go from I'm not a customer to I am a customer, having a one-on-one conversation, whether that's with yourself or someone on your team to have that conversation, is one of the key leverage points in the process. So that's the distinction. The distinction, and I'll pull up my screen so we have a visual to go alongside that. The distinction is in the low leverage approach, you're driving people straight to an enrollment call. See if I can pull this up. Sometimes it needs a little bit of a time. Try it one more time. Stop share, unplug, plug it back in. See if I can do this here. Share, share, share. There we go. All right. The key distinction is in the low leverage environment, you're just driving people to calls. There's no pre-qualification. There's no pre-education that you're driving people to. Everybody who books a call gets a call. Instead, by putting in front of that these sets of steps right here, you're pre-qualifying people along the way so that virtually every call that you're having with an individual has more of a welcome call dynamic than a sales call dynamic, because they've been pre-sold and pre-qualified through all the steps that you have in this part of the equation. Great question, and I'm glad that it came up. Michelle.
Ryan, where does a quiz fit into all of this?
Great question. Let me see the best way to represent it. All right, I'll do it like this. So what you'll find is that there are a few. Let me do it like this, actually. Let me do it. I'm looking to see which diagram makes the most sense to express it. Okay, we'll go right here. This makes sense. Okay. What you're going to find is that driving people from one pillar to the next will represent the biggest challenge that you'll face in your business, no matter what you might be selling. To take people from attract to enroll and then enroll to deliver is going to be the biggest challenge that you face. So you're going to find in some circumstances that no matter what you do, when you try to enroll people into your all roads lead to Rome hybrid program at whatever price point that you might charge, there are going to be some people who are not ready to move forward. It's too big of a leap. If you're inviting people to invest in your $5,000, $10,000, $25,000 program as that next step, for some people, it's going to be too big of a leap to go from here to here. So in that case, the solution is to introduce what we call a stepping stone. Now, a stepping stone might be, instead of a year-long hybrid program, perhaps it's a 3-day boot camp. Or if a 3-day boot camp is too big of an ask, perhaps it's a 1-day intensive. It's a stepping stone that is a smaller step that we invite people to take to bridge the gap from here to here. Similarly, on the attract to enroll transition, to get people from here to here, there are going to be some people who are not ready to commit to signing up for your hybrid workshop. They're not ready to devote an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours of their time to work with you. In that case, what do? Well, we introduce a stepping stone. And arguably the single most effective stepping stone to get people from here to here is to use a quiz. Because while people might not be ready to commit to a 90-minute training, a 90-minute hybrid workshop, you will get people to commit to take a 90-second quiz to find out a little bit about who they are, learn a little bit about their circumstances, and then, and only then, when they've taken that step, what do we introduce to them on the outcome page of the quiz as the next natural step for them to take? The workshop. Now that you've gotten your results and you learned a little bit about yourself, I've got good news. The good news is this: I just so happen to be hosting a workshop on this very situation that you find yourself in right now. And I'd love to invite you to join. So when we look at our actual funnel right here, this step right here, we might introduce a step that goes right in between right here, which is, I'm just going to duplicate this. It goes right here. And this is take quiz. Goes right there. You're shrinking the size of the step that you're inviting someone to take when they go from here to here, if and only if you're unable to get people from this point to that point. Like all things in life, the simplest funnel is the best funnel. I mean, if we could have a funnel that like is someone clicks on a Facebook ad and they wire you $1 million with no steps in between, that's what we all want, right? Like that's the dream. We just want to click on Facebook and give me money. Like that's what we want with no work. All of these other steps along the way are necessary evils that we have in place to get someone from point A to point B. So we want to have the minimum number of steps, the minimum effective dose in order to get people to do what we want them to do, which is to go from attract, enroll, deliver. It's to go from, as we looked at it up here on my screen, if I scroll up enough, to go from cold traffic to a group presentation to a group delivery. So that, again, zooming up and keeping our eye on the prize, we can achieve freedom and flexibility in our life so that we're not tired and trapped, so that we're not in this prison that we've created for ourselves where we're stuck working with clients one-on-one, chasing after warm contacts, constantly in hustle mode, spinning our wheels on that hamster wheel, the roller coaster of up and down and up and down. What we want is predictable, consistent results. Traffic, presentation to a group program, attract, enroll, deliver. High leverage gives us freedom and flexibility. That's the equation. It's all right there. Michelle, any final thoughts before we take everyone through the final exercise that we're going to wrap with, and then our next step, which I think is an exciting thing for those who might be interested in seeing some examples of this in action from some real live businesses. Any final thoughts, Michelle?
Yeah, look, a lot of people are just saying how much they're loving what you are sharing and how valuable this is. And just lots of great feedback so far. I think this has been a really valuable session. And I just want to reiterate what you said about the simplest number of steps. And especially when we are beginning, go for gold. See if you can just get the outcome that you want with the minimum number of steps. And what you often find is that you can get the outcome you want with those minimum number of steps. And then you want to grow and you want to scale and you want to get more numbers over time, then you can start to add in other pieces as well to help you get greater and greater volumes. But what you're seeing here is really the mechanics, the nitty gritty of how to make that switch. Because I think we all want to make that switch in our minds, but like exactly how do we do it? Well, you've just got a blueprint for that process right now in terms of the exact kind of funnel that you want to set up, the way to be thinking about the product that you're offering. And Ryan, we're just seeing a lot of people really resonating with this here today.
Awesome. Well, we've got a next step invitation that I want to make to you here today, and then one final exercise that we are going to wrap with, and that is this. One of the pieces of feedback that you've been giving us over the last few town halls is you said, man, it'd be really, really cool to see examples of some real actual businesses that are using elements of what we've been talking about at these town halls, so you can really bring it to life. Now, what I've shared with you here today is the formula that we've used in our business. It's the formula that we continue to use in our business. And I think it'll be really valuable to hear from and see from some other hybrid experts who are using this approach. So the invitation I have for you here is one that I'm going to put up on my screen, and it is this. On April 6th, Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Central, which is, I believe, 11 a.m. Pacific time, we are going to be hosting a special town hall called Meet the Hybrid Experts. 3 hybrid experts, 3 successful businesses, and 3 challenges that they're facing right now. You're going to have an opportunity to meet Jennifer, who is a course and course creator who successfully transitioned from one-on-one to one-to-many. She's recently celebrated a major milestone in her business, and we're going to talk about the next big shift that she's looking to make and where she is currently trying to get to. We're going to look at the enroll step of the process and meet Todd. Todd, as a career coach, has been able to build a successful cold traffic funnel and is now focused on creating a high converting enrollment process so we can convert more of his leads into cold traffic. And then last but not least, we're going to meet Dan, who I think is actually on this call right now. Dan is a consultant who's built a successful business based on high ticket one-on-one consulting. And his next challenge is figuring out how to translate that expertise into a group program so we can get more leverage in his delivery phase. If you would like to join us for this special session, it is live only. There will be no replay or no recording of this session. The link that I want to share with you here today is as follows. It is askmethod.com/experts. Askmethod.com/experts is the link. I'm going to just make sure that that link works for me. Askmethod.com/EXPERTS. We'll put the link to that inside the chat. It should work. It just worked for me when I typed it in. Askmethod.com/experts is the link. Once again, this is an interactive town hall. There's no pitch, there's no replay, but it is live only. And if you want to see some examples of this in action, and then also experience some real live hot seats where I am going to go through some of the challenges that each one of these hybrid experts is facing right now, and the proposed solutions that I would recommend to overcome those challenges, then I highly encourage that you join us and reserve your spot here today. Askmethod.com/experts is the link, and I will hopefully see you there. We got one final order of business, and that is this. We always like to wrap our town halls with one final exercise where we invite you to take a moment to reflect on everything that we've covered here today. And I know we've covered a lot. We jam-packed a lot in this very short amount of time that we've had here today. And take a moment to reflect on your single biggest takeaway from today's session. The way we do that is as follows. You can use #takeaway inside the Q&A chat inside of Zoom and let us know what's been your biggest takeaway. What's been the biggest aha moment? What's been the biggest insight? The thing that's sticking out to you right now. Maybe there's an insight about your current program, your current enrollment process, your current funnel that you're reflecting on and realizing it's not quite working the way I want it to work. Maybe there was an insight in one of the tactics that we talked about or one of the brief examples that we may have shared. Maybe it was something in the Q&A that came up that really clarified things in your mind. Maybe it was one of the models or diagrams or the funnels that we took a look at that was a challenge that you are struggling with right here, right now in your business. Go ahead and share your single biggest takeaway inside the Q&A. And I've got, as you do that, I just remembered I've got one final poll that I'd love for us to wrap with. And this is going to help inform our next town hall. This next town hall, which may be our last town hall, by the way, for those of you wondering. And that is a poll that we're going to put up on the screen in just a moment. When we looked at the 4 phases of your funnel, and I'll pull it up again on my screen, the 4 phases of your funnel. Put this up right here. One second. When you think about your own funnel and you think about these 4 phases, right? Getting traffic to register for your workshop, getting people to attend your workshop, submit their application or book a call with you or sign up for your product, phase 2, getting people to attend the call and actually join the program. So the call itself, or phase 4, getting people to start your program, get results and become a success story. If you had to pick just one, which of these phases represents the area that you could use the most help with right now? We'll put a poll up on the screen. Is it phase 1? Is it phase 2? Is it phase 3? Is it phase 4? Or is it all the above? You're like, I can use help with all the above. Let me know. Inside the poll, it's going to help us gear up and customize our 5th and perhaps final town hall in this series. Let us know where you need the most help or where you could use the most help, where you'd love to get the most help. Inside the poll, take a moment to go ahead and fill that in right now. Give you just another few seconds to do that. And for those of you who have not already done so, take a moment to share your biggest takeaway inside the Q&A. We'll share the results of the poll in 3, 2, 1, go. You can see right there, it looks like about 51%, half of us could use help with all the above. And the second biggest number is phase 1 of the 4 phases here on the screen. Beautiful. If you haven't already done so, take a moment, share your single biggest takeaway inside the Q&A, and Michelle and I will wrap things up by sharing some of our favorite takeaways from the Q&A, and we'll wrap things up in just a moment. Michelle.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, loving seeing these takeaways. And I wanted to just say, I see a few people saying, well, hang on, isn't this supposed to be a live presentation? This is absolutely a live presentation. Ryan's iPad, I think for some reason, puts an old date up the top there, but I can assure you we're all here live right now. And so looking at the takeaways, Ryan, the 4 buyer types is absolutely featuring in a lot of these. George says how to address the different buyer types. Laurie says 2 things, the 4 buyer personas and how to integrate all of these in your marketing, and also the importance of those show up emails, which is absolutely key. And then Catherine says, I see how the threads of all the town halls fit together, and I feel a lot less confused about how to bridge the gap and to make the switch, which we're super thrilled about. And Carla really got a lot of takeaway from how to incorporate the quiz into the funnel if that step is too high for folks to take. And she says this was jam-packed. Thank you.
Awesome. Heidi says, not using buckets, but buyer types in the marketing, which is a popular one. Dan says, filtering out the tire kickers, which is great. Kelly says, using a buyer's natural language. Natalia says, I'm spontaneous. It makes so much sense now. Yeah, having that self-knowledge and being able to reflect on your own buyer persona can be incredibly insightful in everything that feels natural and unnatural to you in the way that you communicate and market to your audience. This is great. I'm not sure what this means. Is Ryan trying out for the Chosen series? I'm not sure what this is it. I honestly thought this was pre-recorded after seeing Ryan's iPad. No, we are here live. This is great. So anyway, start with a simple approach. Yeah. Aretha says how to integrate all 4 buyer types throughout the journey, and loving this right now. So many good. If you had an issue trying to register, again, the link is askmethod.com/experts for our 5th and final town hall. I'm going to put that back up on the screen one final time for anybody who joined late. We're going to have a chance to meet some hybrid experts and hear what's working for them, what's not working for them, and take a look inside their business and how to apply much of what we've talked about here today. Again, the link is askmethod.com/experts. Go to that link and you can get yourself registered. That is all the time that we have here today. This is a live only session. For those of you who are here on time, you have been in store for a real treat. So for those of you who are joining us at the very tail end, you'll have to catch the next one. We'll do another one of these in a few weeks from now. On behalf of Michelle and our entire team, I want to say thanks so much for being here today. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully on the next town hall around this topic. Take care, and we'll talk soon. Goodbye.